All right, the final mind shift comes in lesson 11. Your message is more important than the medium. And this is going to lead us into the next part of the framework, which is all about the media. So here's maybe the first point on this. I saw something in other people that was possible for me way back when I started on this journey. And this is going to take me all the way back to when I was in Hawaii. And it leads me to this. Comparison isn't always the thief of joy. You've probably seen this floating around on social media that comparison is bad. It can be when looked at from an unhealthy perspective, but the truth is, comparison, when it's done from a healthy perspective, benefits us because others often highlight our bigger possibilities, things that we didn't once think were potential for us. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the blinders go off, and we see like, hey, this could be something for me as well. Now, these are the Oola Guys. This is Dave on the left. This is Troy. This is me. That's the first book that I wrote right here. I went to see them because they were at the convention where I sold this book. I had to go, I think, buy that from the publisher that bought them for me because I didn't have one. And I took it up to give to them. And so they're just being funny. Hey, let's just fight over it, all that. They wrote the foreword for that book. You know, I'd seen in these guys, because one of them, you know, he had lost a lot of weight. You know, he'd been overweight. This guy had basically lost his whole life and had to rebuild it. And so I started seeing in these guys some of the stuff that was possible for me and learning from them. Hey, if they could figure it out, like I could probably, you know, learn from them and talk with them and text them and figure it out for myself as well. And the point is on that, the conversations with others who are ahead of you, they can help lead you forward. And that also means the conversations that you have with others who are behind you your conversations can help lead them forward. So don't miss that. Now, while talking with the Oola Guys, when that book came out, I'd sold it to the publisher, and I'm doing a backflip because I'm thinking I'll never sell this book other than just a few to help some people build the business. All of a sudden, Dave says, "Hey, are you going to do some online marketing with this?" I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what that is. This is 7-8 years ago. I'm not sure. Like, I no. Like, I was just gonna set the book out there and then see what happens to it. Just kind of let it drift. From those conversations, it led me to study and explore, and I learned 3 important terms that I have there in the book for you. Number 1 is this, and we'll keep referring back to it over the next several lessons. Branding is really your look and feel. That's what people think about when they think about you. I'll give you an example right now. When I say, you know, Chick-fil-A, people think about a certain culture. They think about a certain environment. When I say KFC, they think something completely different. Even though both of these organizations sell absolutely the exact same thing, and arguably KFC's chicken is probably better. You can get real vegetables and all these other things, but the experience, because of the brand, is totally different because of the culture. I know some of you disagree about the food and that sort of thing. Branding is what people think about when they think about you. It is your look and feel. Another term is marketing. Marketing is actually asking for the sale. So what I was doing with the book is just kind of setting it out there. Here it is. But at some point, you got to actually ask people to buy this thing. You got to actually be bold enough to say, hey, I'm something of an expert, so I want you to give me some money for this. So, and I get it. People see these terms in different ways, but this is how I will define these terms and use these terms throughout the Amplify framework. So just so we're on the same page, branding is your look and feel. Marketing is when you're asking for the sale. And then the third term I learned about was advertising. Advertising is really paid marketing. So you can market and ask for the sale without having to pay, but you could also advertise or buy an ad online, or buy a billboard or a radio ad or other kinds of advertising. It's when you pay people to ask for the sale for you, to effectively put you in front of an audience that you don't have access to. Now let's talk about this branding thing. Your branding happens in one of 2 ways. So everybody that's doing something online, everybody's creating content, creating a course, creating coaching, you're doing counseling, whatever, you have a brand. You have a certain look and feel that people think when they think about you. Now, you can create that look and feel by design and intentionality, meaning you kind of lead people down the journey of what you want them to think about, or it can happen by default. So it's going to happen in one of those 2 ways. So these were important terms that I started learning all throughout that process. Is really, you've got a brand. Your brand can happen by design. Your brand can happen by default. And your brand is just, again, it's just your look and feel. It's what people think about when they think about you and think about your content, think about your organization, think about what it is that you offer. Now, as I continued writing and creating, I learned some of the processes that I use. And so one of the questions that comes up a lot is, well, where did you guys learn all this stuff, or where did you put it together? We learned about it by actually doing it and then figuring it out, most of it the hard way, by messing up or by stepping into something like branding and marketing and not knowing the difference, or not realize, oh, at some point you actually have to ask for the sale. So we learned that by doing it, and doing the work showed us things that reading a book can't show us. So I actually learned in the trenches. And there's certain lessons I think you're gonna just have to learn. You can learn it in the book, but then you can get in there and you have to actually do it. And it's in the doing of it, very different than just watching the video or reading about it. At some point, you gotta do it, because like playing the game is very different than just kind of watching the game or reading about the game. You gotta jump in and do it. Here's one of the things we learned: everything fits together. Once you have your content in one form, you can easily transform it into other forms. Now, having been through the first 10 lessons here, the first 10 mind shifts, you probably already locked onto this one. Once you have it in one form, you can easily transform it. Let me tell you what I mean. Here's the stairs. This is the outline that we're going to go through in the next part of the Amplify framework when we just start discussing the media. So I started off with a book, because I'd always been writing and developing stuff. Most people don't. And so as we're putting together the Amplify framework, I'm thinking, if I wanted to write a book, what would be the easiest way for me to actually write a book? And so I decided that if I was going to write a book, it would be easier for me to write a book if I already had a talk or series of talks, or if I already had some notes and an outline. Either one of those, I could turn notes and an outline, or a talk or series of talks that I'd already given somewhere. I could turn either one of those into a book. Well, then that led me to think, okay, well, if I had a talk or series of talks or notes or outline, and I wanted that, what would be the easiest way to get notes and an outline? What would be the easiest way to get a talk or series of talks? And I thought, well, if I had social media and I had some posts and some videos and stuff that I'd already put together and organized, meaning meaningful social media, not just, oh, woo, roll tide, or something just that's nonsense, or going out to eat, something like that. But I actually had some social media that had some meat to it. That would be something I could easily turn into a talk or series of talks, or I could turn that into notes or an outline, which then led me to think, well, okay, what would I need in order to have good social media? Well, that was like, well, if I had a podcast or a blog, something was already written, I could turn that into that, which then led me to think, well, what would I need for that? Well, in order to have a podcast or a blog, I would need a website, somewhere to host it, which would have some other stuff to it, which then led me to think, well, what would I need in order to get that? Well, I would need, a workbook or an outline or something that would tell me the framework of what was going to be here. And I just started developing it out. Well, what else could I do if I had all of this? Well, then I could develop a course. And if I had a course, I could develop coaching. And if I had coaching, I could do a membership. And if I had a membership, I could do other stuff like keynotes and masterminds and all these other kinds of groups. Started seeing like all of this stuff fits together. It's going to be in a different order for you. And it's going to come out in a different way because your thought process is different. But the point is, at any point on this set of stairs, what I think is, if you're going to build something that's higher, it's easier just to take it incrementally. Does that make sense? Or if you're already somewhere up here, if you already have a coaching framework, you could probably very easily do a podcast. Or if you already have a podcast, you already have a series of talks. If you already have a workbook, you could easily turn that workbook into a series of talks. You could turn that workbook into a book. You see, like it all fits together. You don't have to just kind of run at this thing and jump and go all the way up to coaching. I read this stat that somebody told me, and they told me, and I want to see if it's true. So that 90% of life coaches never coach anybody. You go, well, why do they get into it? They get into it because they like personal development. And they might be thinking, okay, I'm going to coach people, but like, man, that's a big leap, like just to go from like nothing. And so most people that just show up on the scene and start coaching people, they already have a running start from something they've done in the past that just kind of lends them to that skill set. But for most of us, like that's not going to be the way we're going to do it. If you want to be a coach, you're going to go, well, you could probably bound up 2 or 3 of the stairs. Like you bound up if you're going upstairs here where we're shooting this. But most of us just going to kind of be like, okay, let's just kind of walk up and get up, and whatever time it takes, it takes. This is something we're going to work through in the next part of the framework. Again, because all of this stuff works together. These aren't separated. These are all together. And so you should, again, look at your content as all one thing. Here's the other thing I learned. It's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. The medium is also part of the brand. So where you're posting, what you're posting, the kind of stuff that you create, the mode, the form that you create, like that's all part of that look and feel and everything that you are. That's part of the whole, let's just use the word here, ecosystem. So ecosystem is all the parts of the whole and how they all work together. It's all the things on that stairs. Everything that you're doing, all of that really has to do with your brand. It has to do with your look and feel. Here's another idea. Okay, so you don't really change the message when you change the medium. You just make it more accessible. Here's one of the things we'll talk about is people, as they start giving you more money, when they buy a book, a lot of people can afford the book. But as you go into coaching, well, that's more access to you. It's less people. They're paying more money. Now, again, that doesn't change the message. It changes the medium. The accessibility becomes very different on those by way of example. Here's another way to think about it. Amplification doesn't change your message. Amplification makes it louder. Sometimes it makes it clearer. So if I was speaking on a live stage with a big group of people, there might be someone there that's running a sound system. So I'm speaking on a microphone that's coming out speakers. There's somebody on the front row that's probably taking notes really furiously, pen and paper in hand. There's somebody else that's just kind of typing this stuff out. There's somebody else that's probably recording it with an MP3 player or something on their phone. Those are all forms of amplification. Doesn't change the message, it just makes it more accessible to other people in different forms. That's exactly what's going on when we start talking our way in the media, now that we're getting the mind shifts up through those stairs. Another point here, having more entry points, whether it's a book, it's a course, it's coaching, it's a blog, it's a podcast, whatever it is, having more entry points into your ecosystem. Again, this is all going to be part of your brand, what people think about when they think about you, your look and feel. It allows people to join where they are, and then they can grow with you. So ideally, you're going to have multiple points where people can come and they can join you wherever they are and then grow with you. So there's different possibilities for the ecosystem that you create. Most of these are taken from those stairs. So you can have blog, you can email, text, websites, podcasts, courses, coaching, memberships, books. All of these are possibilities. And here's what you need to understand. When we're kind of working through those stairs, we're going to teach through them kind of, hey, this builds on this builds on that, this builds on this. The reality is most people aren't going to come in a clean and tidy way. They're going to come in wherever they come in. And they're just going to join you. Some people are going to find you through your podcast. Some people are going to find you just through a blog post or through a membership program. Some people are just going to automatically give you a whole bunch of money for coaching, and then they're going to go into other things. Some people find you through the website or through an event that you do. You just let people come in. What you need to do is focus on the message, not the medium only. This is where a lot of people get tripped up, is they focus on the medium. They focus on, I'm going to create a course, or they focus on, I'm going to do coaching. Those are great, but those are just medium. The more important thing right here is the thing that nobody else can impart to you or nobody else can skill you is the message. All of these forms of medium, they're skills that can be learned. So you need to focus on the message, not the medium only. You got to learn the medium. And as you do that, you'll gain an audience based on your message, not the medium. The mediums can make it more accessible to different people at different forms based on where they are and where they enter your ecosystem. But we really want to focus on the message as well. And then realize that trust is going to grow over time. As people come into your ecosystem, as they come in contact with your brand, this trust is going to grow over time. Now, I did not make up this graphic. In fact, I don't even know where it came from. This is very common in floating around. For our purposes, though, notice this, like time grows with consistency. So a lot of time, no consistency, we're really not going to see an elevation here. Or we can be consistent, but if there's no time, like we're just consistent and they're still right here. So we've got to really grow this. So here's what we do. Trust just goes up by delivering value over time. And so as we continue delivering value, at some point, there's a tipping point where they're ready to make a purchase with you, where buying something that you have is the logical next step. And generally, it takes a little bit more time if it's a higher ticket item. Not always, but generally it does. So trust goes up as you consistently deliver the value over time. Here's the other thing. Not only does the trust grow, but the relationship grows deeper. So if you take that graphic, the time over trust, and you just flip it, it's going to start looking a lot like your funnel that you're going to develop over the next few lessons here. So again, the time, the consistency, it's not that it just grows up, it also goes deeper because the relationship grows deeper. And that leads me to this. Each form of content that you share with your message, each form is going to take people deeper and it's going to pull them closer. And I'm going to show you a graphic of a funnel in just a second that's going to maybe answer that or help you illustrate that. So the early parts of the funnel, here's what you're going to see. There's a lower cost, there's more people, there's less access to you. Again, the early parts of the funnel that you're developing, your whole ecosystem of all of the stuff that you're going to create, whether it's a blog, it's a podcast, it's a book, it's a course, it's coaching. The early parts of the funnel, lower cost, more people, less access to you. Let me show you what that looks like. So the early parts of the funnel up here, books, not a high cost. So I told you the example, I was making $6 a book, friend of mine making 50 cents a book. Lots of people can afford that book. Not as many people can afford that course that's going to cost $200. Not as many people can afford that membership or will choose to afford that membership. If it's a higher cost than that course, these can be up or down depending on how much. Not as many people are going to afford the one-to-one coaching. So again, lower cost up here at the top, more people, less access to you. So over time, what you'll see is initially you may spend a lot of time up here with a lot of people, but as you grow this thing, you're going to be spending more so of your time down here. Okay? Get the idea there? Now, this is a graphic that you'll see all throughout the book, all throughout the Amplify materials. We're going to develop it more. Here's what I do want to point out to you. Blogs, podcasts, social media, all of that really is free. So those are things you're not making money off of. Those are part of your brand. But at some point, you got to get the opt-in and you got to get people into this funnel. The funnel is really right here. It exists inside your website. Okay, so the funnel is not your website. It exists inside the website. The mistake that a lot of times I think we make is we think people are deeper in the funnel they are just because they're on our email list. Unless they're actually doing something and going deeper and making a purchase and taking action, they're just kind of sitting up here on the rim of this thing. And so we don't want to make a mistake of thinking they're lower and deeper than they are, that they get more access to you than they should. Other things down here at the bottom might include mastermind, keynotes, consulting. That's where you would have lots of access, higher cost. Let me show you this. The latter parts of the funnel, that's where we have the higher cost. That's where we have less people. That's where they have more access to you. Okay, so the early parts of the funnel, it's just the opposite. Lower cost, that's books. More people can afford a book, okay? Less access when it's a book, but they get deeper in the funnel, higher cost, less people, more access to you, the expert. Let me show you an overhead view of the funnel. This is the same thing, but notice how we're going deeper. They're also kind of coming in more at the core. So there's like a tighter relationship there. So you can kind of visualize it in that same way as it all fits together. So on the outside, books, okay, lots of people, courses, okay, that can be automated, can be completely digitized, not as many people as a book. Memberships and coaching, closer into you. Others start doing some keynotes and consulting, that's much deeper. Less people there, more access to you, higher cost. And again, notice the things that we end up getting tripped up on and spend the most of our time on, blogs, podcasts, social media, all important, but those don't even exist inside the funnel. These aren't necessarily monetized. The goal of these is to use these to drive people to an opt-in so that we can monetize all of the things that are over here. Over time, you'll create more entry points into the ecosystem. And I would even think it's like this. It's not that there'll just be more entry points into the funnel. Over time, you'll probably have multiple funnels. So, in our world, like the whole Amplify process, that's kind of one of the funnels that we have. One of the things that we sell, one of the things that we do. But we also have some life coaching. We have a whole thing called Advance that's a whole different funnel. We have a whole different thing called Life Lift. It's a whole different funnel. Some other things, they're completely different funnels. Over time, you'll have more different funnels. You'll have more different pieces of your ecosystem as well. Ultimately, though, here's the path of how we're going to get there. And this is where we start landing everything, all of these mind shifts, and start putting it up, setting up the next part of the Amplify framework. Here's the path. Begin with the message. You've got to have the message first. Now, you can learn all of these processes. However, if you learn all the processes but don't have a message, you don't really have anything to give everybody. So you've got to have the message first. So you begin with the message, and then we want to understand the important mind shifts after we have the message. So we move from the message, that's the problem you solve, it's the perspective you give to people as they step into their potential, and then we move into the mind shift. So understanding how to manage the message. You now know how to do that because you've been through the 10 different mind shifts, and this is the 11th that we're talking through how to do that. Now, here's a review of those mind shifts. Number one, you birth the message, so keep it. Don't give it away. If you keep it, you can continue stewarding it, and I think you can make more money off of it. Number two, most people can make more money by keeping that message. And if you keep it, you can continue developing it, you can refine it, just as I've done with books and books into courses and courses into coaching and consulting and other forms. Number three, don't wait until you have the perfect tools or the tech. It's not about the tech, it's about the message. The tech exists to serve the message. Again, go back to the example of speaking in front of a live audience. The most important thing in the live audience is the message that the messenger's giving. The most important thing is not the megaphone, or it's not the amplifier in the sound system or the microphone. The most important thing is the message right there. So in the same way, don't get tied up on all the technology and the websites. You got to use that, but it's just a tool. Don't wait for perfect. Just begin starting now. Number four, people will pay for convenience. This is the example that I used where we gave away that course for free, and then all of a sudden people didn't get it for free and they started buying it. All content is not created equal. Some messages actually matter more, but even though some messages matter more, the same processes work for all the content. So if you see somebody running a play in a space that's not something that you teach about, and it seems like it's a really good play, just go ahead and run the same play, okay? And learn from people, cross-pollinate from other ecosystems and what you see other people doing with their brand. Number seven, the same content can be repurposed in many ways throughout your ecosystem. So you can use the course and turn the course into a book. You can use the book and turn the book into social media. You can use the social media and turn it into a video intro. You can use the video intros and turn those into your email sequences. You can repurpose absolutely everything. And we actually even talked about, as you repurpose it, use some of the free stuff that you've repurposed and drive people back to the paid content. That's a mind shift. Number 9 mind shift is this: recurring revenue streams ease pressure on you. They make things more enjoyable. If you're constantly chasing the money, it's a little bit more difficult to focus on the message. Number 10, the best lessons are often the ones you're actively learning. So let people join the journey with you. If right now you're kind of starting, well, I'm going to monetize this thing, just let people know, hey, I'm starting. You want to join me? Like, join me in this, and you can start doing this with me. And then finally, here's the 11th mind shift here, is you're going to build trust over time with consistency. That's really what we're talking about in this lesson right here. You're going to build trust over time with consistency. And as you do that, the trust factor grows up and people start growing at the same time, because that inverted time for trust graph, it flips and it looks exactly like your funnel, where people go deeper at the same time that they go higher. Here's the next thing that we want to do too, is we're moving from the media to the mind shifts. We want to learn how to use each form of the media to amplify the message. So you're going to learn, again, move from the message to the mind shift to the media. The media is going to be the funnel and the forms of content that you can deliver the message. That's going to be these stairs. We'll walk through these in the next part of the Amplify framework. Again, message, mind shift, media. And then finally, we'll end with building healthy habits. We call those the methods. You're going to develop those into your workflow so that you can achieve more with less stress. Ultimately, at some point, you got to show up and you got to do the work. So message, mind shift, media, to the methods. Here are the methods. You're going to learn to do the discipline and routine to do the work. So you'll learn how to do that. Number 2, you're going to learn how to create things and then recycle them through all the forms of media. Number 3, that's going to be dependent upon having a filing system that works for you so you can find this stuff in order to reshare it. The 4th thing is you'll learn how to create 30 days of social media in 3 hours so that you can spend your time on the paid content, not spend your time on the free content. You learn how to do stories and reels with less stress. We'll use templates for everything we do. And then finally, you'll learn systems that will help automate the results. Those are the 11 mind shifts. In the next part of the framework, we'll be talking about the media.